clip called "Why Women Are the Problem." All right, let's figure it out. This was retweeted by Elon Musk, by the way, with 2 million views. I'm hoping I'm not about to get rage baited at 11 a.m. on a fucking Monday morning.
So men are much better at resolving conflict and then moving on, whereas women tend to hold on to things and sort of not move on after conflict.
That's very fair. And okay, this is actually a very fair point, because for a lot of men, there'll be an issue, it'll be dealt with, they'll solve it, things will be resolved, they forget about it and move on, and they don't realize that their partner just put that on a checklist, and they're going to remember it forever, and they're going to bring it up the next argument, and the next argument, and the next argument, whereas men can have a problem, resolve it, sweep it. Women will have a problem, resolve it, and it'll stay there. And then they'll remember it. And then they'll bring it up. So every problem stacks, right? It stacks. If you do not have a rule in your relationship, which is, once we talk about this, we're going to move on and we're not going to bring it up again, you are legitimately, if you are with a person who is reminding you of issues that you had 2 years ago that you already resolved today, you are in a dead-end relationship. That person is stacking them up because they're looking for a reason to invalidate you so they can leave you, because they doubt your credibility as a man. And that's the truth. So please take note of that. Please, as well as friends. If you have friends who won't let you move on from your past mistakes that you've already repented for, you need to get better friends, because otherwise you will experience no growth as a man whatsoever.
And that's what we saw a lot during wokeness. People were targeted for behavior or for making statements that were un-PC. And until, pre-wokeness, the way you would deal with a situation like that is you would have a debate.
Yes.
James Damore would be at Google and he would say, I think female underrepresentation in science is due to
lack of credibility,
biological attributes, and not bias.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, the problem is that being a member, and I'm just going to be honest, right? Obviously, you guys know I am right-leaning, pretty far right. I'm not going to say I'm far right-leaning, but I'm leaning pretty heavily that way, because these days you kind of have to be if you actually have any grasp on what's happening in reality. Because right now the left is kind of like fairy tales and feelings, and the right is proof and evidence and doing what needs to be done. And that's the truth. But it's a lot harder to be a person on the right than it is someone on the left, due to the fact that, and I make it make sense to my viewers by saying, people on the left are kind of like the spoiled mothers who get their kids whatever they want. Like, they get them tons of ice cream. And then the kids are like, oh, ice cream, yay, I love ice cream, this is so fun. And then the right is the strict dad who says, listen, son, I love you, but ice cream's not good for you. I'm going to have to take it away. But then the kids are like, how's ice cream bad if it tastes so yummy? Well, you have to understand it has sugars and glycosaccharides and fatty acids and all that. Well, yeah, but why does it taste so good? And the people on the right have to explain to retards what their stance is, and the people on the left are too stupid to understand them. And so they confuse their strictness in doing the right thing for being mean and evil. And that's why people on the right, or even the far right, are considered Nazis, because the people on the left don't have the intellectual capacity to understand. They're just being told what is for the betterment of our species. And a lot of this comes down to trans people. And the reason why that is because, okay, everybody should be able to do whatever they want and be whatever they want. Okay, well, the problem is you're sterilizing our children, and it's going to lead to the extinction of our species. So if you say, I don't support trans people, they're going to say, wow, so you just want to just really shit on this marginalized group? Yes, because they're going to lead to the death of our society. And they have been groomed by, most likely, deranged pedophiles into thinking that there's something that they're not, to fulfill someone else's perverse fantasy. Because the reality is, no one becomes trans without being groomed into thinking they are. I'm sorry, they don't, unless they've been tricked into thinking so. Sorry.
The way to deal with that is to have a conversation about whether he's correct or not. The way wokeness deals with that is by saying, I can't believe you just said that. I'm going to get you fired from your job.
It's very true. This is the reason why they killed Charlie Kirk. The reason why they killed Charlie Kirk is because he was very good at communicating his points and making people understand. And they didn't want that because the left operates on discourse and they want everybody to be at each other's throats because they don't know how to articulate or defend their points because their points aren't defensible because they're retarded. But they want to believe that because that's what they've been conditioned or bought out into believing. And I'm sorry, if you think all of these A-list celebrities are all for some reason parroting the same political views, it's because they were paid to do so.
Wokeness was an inability to have any kind of open debate because the very existence of that debate seemed too much like conflict, and conflict had to be suppressed. And this was just so massively toxic for so many institutions since 2020. And the reason why I think it's important to consider whether wokeness is a product of demographic feminization is because if it is, that means wokeness is not over. A lot of people look around, they think, Donald Trump won the election, wokeness is finished, we can all move on, the vibe shift is here.
No. Now, I'm hoping the SAVE Act for America will continue to put Republican presidents in office. But the problem is, and I hate to say this, Republican presidents can be bad too. It's the truth. They are. And we also don't know who is in office that is actually there because they want to do change versus they know what to say to get people to vote. There's a lot of feds out there.
But I think that if wokeness is just female patterns of behavior in institutions where women were not as well represented until recently, then that means it's here to stay and we need to deal with it head on. I think a lot of us
it's very true. As much as all these people want to shit on women for having OnlyFans, it is also the fault of the men who support them because these women would not have power if men did not give them if men did not give them the power, they would have none. And so, yeah. But you have to understand that men gave women far too much power. They did. And that's why it's here to stay, is because a lot of fucking loser simps gave them more power than they should have ever had.
Except that in many cases, fields become more and more feminized, not because women are outcompeting men within that field, but because women are feminizing that field and making it more and more friendly to feminine preferences and patterns of behavior.
It's very true. A lot of men are having to turn to porn in order to sexually satisfy themselves because it's nearly impossible to find a good woman these days, which is why, and it sucks, a lot of men do use OnlyFans. A lot of men do use porn religiously because there's no women that anybody wants to put their seed into because they're f***ing crazy and they're probably going to say that you them if you ever have sex with them. So as much as I love to educate people about the dangers of porn addiction, I also totally understand as a guy who suffered from porn addiction myself. And people are like, dude, it destroyed my life. It destroyed my mental. It destroyed my dick. And it took me years to undo that damage. By some miracle of God, I finally found a good woman. That gave me everlasting damage mentally and physically and emotionally that I'm still having to deal with years later because so many men are going to get addicted to hardcore pornography because there's no good women. Let me rephrase that. There's a very little amount of good women left. And it's like winning the lottery if you actually find one of them that isn't going to treat you like an abuser, that isn't going to be retarded the entire time you're dealing with them. Because the idea of just listening to and respecting your male partner is such a foreign concept due to TikTok feminism brainwashing so many women. And now if your husband who's paying for all the bills says, "Hey babe, can you make dinner?" They say, "Oh my God, are you mentally here right now?" It's too much, man. It's too much. So they do this by design because now you are going to perpetuate that very same cycle that they want you to.
Like if you're working at a business that is so HRified that it's like, the HR lady designed every aspect of your day-to-day office experience. She determined who advanced at that company, who got the best promotions and the best assignments, and everything was touchy-feely in a HRified type of way. Obviously, a masculine man is not going to do well in that environment,
Of course.
and he's not going to advance.
Of course.
But that's not because he's not competitive. It's not because he's not good at his job. It's just because that kind of highly feminized organization is not friendly to his virtues and attributes.
I want you to think here real quick. What type of behavior is rewarded in today's society? You go into a restaurant, you go into Target, you go into Walmart. Who's more likely to get a coupon to come back again? Who's more likely to get their bill written off? Who's more likely to get a free item after dinner? Is it the person who was kind and respectable? Or was it the person who freaked out, cried, complained, and bitched at the manager? The person who bitches and cries, obviously. Karens get rewarded for being absolute pieces of shit because good, respectable men, it's not rewarded behavior. What is rewarded is being a weak, crying little bitch who complains about everything to get what they want. It is very rewarded to go into a restaurant with your blue hair and your nose ring and say, actually, it's ma'am, and I deserve to be comped, or I'm going to make a Twitter post about this. And it's pathetic. Being a good, respectable man is no longer rewarded. And then if you are a good, respectable man in a relationship, 90 times out of 100, you're going to be used and taken advantage of, and you're going to have to bust your ass, and your relationship is going to end up like this, due to the fact that this is how modern relationships feel. The women will sit there and do nothing. They will provide nothing. They will earn nothing, while the man has to sing, jump, dance, and finance absolutely everything that the woman does, all while saying we're equal in this relationship. And that is why so many people are avoiding women. That is why so many people don't want to procreate, because TikTok feminism has brainwashed people into thinking that the woman is right always, and the man must be the clown for the woman. And you want to know why that is? Because if a man ever starts talking real with a woman, people are going to say that they're abusing and manipulating them. Everybody knows what I'm saying is true, but they're not ready to say it out loud yet.
Yep.
So I think when we consider how do we deal with feminization, if it's something we want to roll back, how should we go about it? That's the first place to look. Are there any institutions or organizations that are too feminized in this unnatural way?
Yes. There's a list that is near infinite, and it's disgusting. And that title of the video is why women are the problem.